Hi everyone, Monty the Card Nerd here, and in this one, I have an interesting story to share with all of you regarding a large international purchase that my wife and I attempted to make with a credit card. Specifically, the Citi AAdvantage Platinum Select World Elite Mastercard, which currently has an elevated sign-up bonus of 75,000 American airline miles for spending $3,500 in the first 4 months. I was intending for this purchase of around 5,300 US dollars to single-handedly get us the bonus, but as you know from the title of the video, the card got declined. Did we end up missing the sign-up bonus? And did we end up even making that transaction? I'll reveal the outcomes and, more importantly, infer some tips for using your US credit cards when traveling internationally, particularly on larger purchases that may be flagged for suspicious activity. In the spirit of nerding out, we gotta try and draw some helpful insights. Let's start with highlighting what I believe are the fundamentals of using your credit cards internationally. 1. Use a card with no foreign transaction fees. It's simple, you just don't want to be paying what is typically a 3% foreign transaction fee on cards that have it, as it will chunk into the rewards that you earn from your purchases. There are several cards that come with no foreign transaction fees, many of which also don't have annual fees, such as the starter hotel and airline credit cards and Capital One cards like the Saver one. 2. Do not rely on American Express credit cards, as those are less likely to get accepted internationally, most likely due to how American Express charges higher merchant fees compared to Visa or Mastercard. In my recent trip where I attempted the large purchase, I was in Athens and Paris. In Paris, virtually all places accepted American Express, but in Athens, maybe 2 out of 15 accepted it. So yeah, make sure to have a Visa or Mastercard to at least serve as your backup international card. And 3, in many instances, especially when the place is not a restaurant, after you tap your card, you'll be prompted with whether you want to pay with US dollars or the local currency. Always select local currency, as if you select US dollars, the conversion will be done at a pretty crap exchange rate. Whereas if you select local currency, the credit card company will perform the conversion at an exchange rate that is much more aligned with the current market exchange rate. I'll end this part on the fundamentals with a 3.5, specifically that you can go onto your credit card online account or make a call in order to set up travel notifications indicating where and when you'll be traveling. I call this 3.5 because given the developments in fraud detection up to current day, the credit card companies don't really need to rely on the customers manually entering their travel notifications in order to flag or not flag suspicious fraudulent activity. There can, however, be some nuances, which I experienced firsthand recently. So what my wife and I attempted to purchase with her Citi AAdvantage card was a classic flat bag from Chanel. Probably not too relevant for this audience, but real quick, it would have been something that my wife would have loved carrying around, as well as something that we both would have loved reselling in the future for a price that will likely fetch a decent profit based on historical price trends. Anyway, yeah, she tapped the card and voila, declined. Suspicious activity flag, no doubt, but we knew it wasn't because we didn't set travel notifications, because just the day before, she used that card to purchase a roughly 900 US dollar purchase, and it went through with no issue. Clearly, the larger price was what triggered the flag, and it wasn't because there wasn't sufficient available credit on the card, as we had double, triple checked that prior. I suppose this could have happened even if we were making the large purchase in the US, but let's just assume that being international was somewhat at play. At this critical juncture, we were mainly left with 3 options. Number 1, call the number at the back of the card and ask Citi to remove the flag. We tried this, and probably due to our specific phone plan as it pertained to making international calls, we just couldn't get through. Thus, on to number 2, wait for Citi to reach out, presumably through email or text, to attempt to validate the attempted transaction. I think in many instances, if you're not too pressed for time, this is a viable option, but here was our scenario. We had a sales representative be with my wife the entire time that she was selecting her bag, and then afterwards, we were brought into a private room where another representative facilitated the transaction. I don't know, with those 2 sets of eyes squarely fixed on us, It just seemed kind of awkward waiting too long. Funnily enough though, that text from Citi asking my wife to validate the transaction came roughly 10 minutes after we had left the store. Anyway, to quickly backtrack, we were left with number 3, use another card. Thankfully, we came prepared with a solid backup, and I would recommend anyone to have a backup to make, well, any purchase really. I used my Capital One Venture X with no issue, which, just like my wife's Citi AAdvantage card, comes with no foreign transaction fees and had more than enough available credit in order to accommodate the purchase. I guess that also implies that Capital One's fraud detection is less sensitive towards large purchases, or maybe it's just because I had a longer history of purchases on my Venture X. So, all's well that ends well, except hang on, did we end up missing the sign-up bonus on my wife's Citi AAdvantage card? Fortunately, no, as my wife got the card in early March, and given that the bonus period is 4 months, we have until early July in order to meet the $3,500 spend requirement. At this point, we plan to just put our collective everyday spend on the card, which should allow us to organically meet the spend requirement before early July. And here's where we can draw a helpful conclusion. If you're intending to hit a sign-up bonus with just 1 or 2 larger purchases, try not to have those large purchases occur towards the end of those bonus periods, as if those transactions don't go through for one reason or another, you might just end up missing that bonus, which is a tragic thing. You want to strategically time your credit card applications. For example, if you expect to make a large purchase on July 1st, ideally get that credit card in, say, early June instead of April. The only exception that I can think of is if there is an elevated sign-up bonus on the card that is expected to end on a certain date, and you only expect to make that large purchase well after that date. Just know that you're taking a little bit of a risk, and thus it's advisable to plan for alternative ways to spend on the card. For example, prepaying on some of your bills. And with that, I hope this provided some helpful insights regarding how you can maximize credit card rewards with your international spend. Throughout the video, I brought up 2 cards that I think are great options for you to spend on internationally. If you want to learn more about the AAdvantage Platinum Select World Elite Mastercard and more generally about American Airline miles, consider checking out this video here. And if you want to learn more about how you can better position yourself to get approved for the Capital One Venture X, consider checking out this video here. Here's your card nerd signing off on this one. Peace.